All right, we are recording. Okay, so we hopefully can see this deer skull here that I took a picture of. And what we are going to talk in today's lesson is about basic shape. Now, I'm going to draw this. I'm going to use this as a reference. But we have proportions. Now look at your skull, the one you drew as a warm-up. The size of the skull and the size of the antlers. Skull is more important than the antlers to the deer for sure. But we need to make sure that things are proportionate. Do you see the size of this skull here? Can you see what I'm doing? Do you see the size of that and the size of the skull versus the size of the antlers? The other thing to look at is, as we talked about before with the cloth, is the angles. Angle of the antlers, the angle here, angle across the top, not quite level in this particular picture, and the other angles. So there are a lot of different approaches. We're going to use this and talk about basic shape. We're going to do a line drawing essentially to start with. I'm going to do this very dark so that it can pick up on the screen here. So first thing I do with a picture, I break it up. And you can look at the skull that's in front of you. So here's a top and bottom, and then halfway. What's at halfway? Gabe, are you getting this? It looks like you're not following along. Top and bottom, halfway. Do you see it? Your drawings were not fairly accurate on this. I mean, some more so than others. Yours actually is all right. Take a look at that halfway mark. That gives you a sense of where the proportions are. A lot of us, most of you, made the skull way too big. Or some of you started at the antler, worked your way around, worked your way down. Some of you try to start in one. I think you should try to get the whole thing at once. So the idea there is that you do not need to draw this hard. You can just going to be sketching as far as you're concerned. You want to get the basic shape of what things are. So I'm going to start with this basic shape here. Angles are matched. There's an angle of the antler there. There's an angle of here. And then we have the skull. So these two proportions, I'm trying to keep it really simple. We'll look at the front of the nose of the skull, the angle there. That should be out here if this is the nose. This should be done lightly. I'm doing it very dark so that it can show up on this screen. Base of the skull, angle here. This is kind of my proportions. Does this make sense? Does this make sense? Proportions. Start with that. So I'm going to move this aside so that I can do this a little bit more naturally, because those are really dark lines. I can't really work with that. This is actually how I sketch. Looking at the one in front of you, checking my angles, move those angles over. There's the nose. The halfway point should be about there. That's good. And we are just doing a line drawing today, so it does not have to be have a lot of shading. If you want to add shading, that is totally fine. But let's get the structure right. There's a weird eraser I stuck under the back of that, so that's in the picture. I'm not worrying about any particular detail. I'm just kind of getting the structure in there. I don't want to add any horns or anything that aren't in the drawing, but I'm trying to keep it pretty loose as I'm sketching it. Now, this sketch here, it is not an excellent sketch. It doesn't look real. There's nothing It looks very much drawn, almost cartoonish in a way, different kind of cartoon, but you see what I mean. It's very, very drawn. From this, I can scaffold up a very realistic drawing. Does that make sense? I can clean up this all over, and cleaning it up is probably what I should do, but there, Gabe, what you were talking about is not being able to see it very well. You can still see the structure, and that's really what we're focusing on today. And from that structure, we can really clarify things, and as you go, you might need to make some edits. So this would be lesson 6, I think. Line drawing. What? Neither. I was over there. My angle was different than yours. So, good question. Shape and angles. So, this is my line drawing. I want to do this a handful of times, but so we're going to do this over and over again. We're going to do this like 4 times. Okay? You take your time. So some of us need to fill the page more. Some of us are doing small drawings. Some of us need to work on those angles. Some of us need to work on that basic shape before we even get to the angles. Like, what are the big, what do we have, say, like in this section, here and here. That's not a bad way to break it down. Think about it in 2 different parts. Can you see what I mean here? 2 large different parts. That's a really good way to think about this, and or you can think of it as a great big triangle on top of another little, like a shoe, and that's a kind of a way to do it. So, however you do it, that's fine. We're going to do this, like I said, about 4 times, and I'll just put my name on this, set this aside, and stop the recording. Not a very long recording lesson.